right now I'm taking the tips of these turnips and putting them in my raised bed over here. I have a raised bed over here that's really depleted on nutrients and it's been struggling for years. So I want to focus on implementing my method of improving the soil microbiome, and I do that by introducing direct composting into the beds so that the bacteria can feed on that and the worms can feed on that and introduce worm castings and have a healthy living soil in there. I'm not putting the leaves in there because some of the leaves I noticed have spider mites and some of them have aphids. I'm going to be giving the leaves to my chickens, but I am giving the tips that are not so good because this compost that we got had a lot of bugs in it, and the bugs were eating through my root vegetables like the turnips and radishes and stuff like that. I harvested this over here and I have some turnips, some rutabagas, some carrots, and look at this carrot over here. Isn't that wonderful? This is not all the carrots. I only planted a few carrots this time. I didn't plant that much. I will be planting a bigger harvest for the fall because I like to have my biggest harvest in the fall so that I can store it for a longer period of time, because if I do have a cold environment in my house, I could just store it in my basement and not worry about it going bad. Well, now if I plant a big harvest of carrot, I do have to worry about storing it, and then I would have to store all of it in the fridge, and I don't have that space in my fridge. I would rather use that space for other stuff than just a whole bunch of carrots. So I think this is great. Just a little harvest, just to kind of give us some fresh carrots in the summer, and it won't take that much valuable space in the early spring. I also have some fava beans and my last harvest of the sugar snap peas. The rest I'm letting go to seed, because this type of sugar snap peas, it's the sugar snap peas, they don't last in the summer. They kind of peter out as soon as it starts getting hot. So I leave a whole bunch of them to go to seed, and then I use those and plant a whole bunch of them in the fall and also in the next coming spring. You can see what I'm talking about over here, all the damage that the bugs did. So I just cut it. Maybe if I harvested them a little earlier it would have been better, but I was thinking that normally my root vegetables grow really big, but with this compost and the type of weather that we've been having, they just struggled so much and the bugs got to them. And I think this compost also carried a lot of bugs with it. That's okay, not a big deal. It's gonna feed the soil and my chickens, and eventually my chickens are gonna give us eggs. Yeah, baby. Hi guys, this is Chantel, and today I'm prepping my garden for the summer, and to do that I'm just emptying my beds from all the vegetables that have served their purpose, and if there's anything that's not doing so well or anything that needs to be harvested, I'm just going to harvest. And some of them are going to seed. So with the plants that are going to seed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave 3 of those of each of the same plant if I have 3 of them, just for biogenetic diversity, to allow the plants to reproduce properly and have genetic diversity, so that when I come to plant them the year after, they would have even better genetics and they would have acclimated a little bit more to our weather over here. I see birds over here on my fava beans, so they would have acclimated a little bit better to our weather in here. And the more I do this with every passing year, the more I save seeds. Of course, that's going to contribute to the genetics of the plants and make them even better. And that's my plan anyways. Will I stick to it? I don't know, but that's my plan and my hope for the future, that this is what will be happening. So in this bed I have some rutabagas, I have some turnips, and two different types of turnips, the purple turnips and white turnips, and I also have some Asian daikon radish. Now in our early spring we got a heat wave for like 2 or 3 days, and that just caused them to bolt and go to seed, and that's what bolting means, just going to seed. So most of them have done that, and I'll be planting another crop of those for the fall, and I'll do that in mid to late August, so that I can have some of these plants in the fall, because I really want to make kimchi and I do love making kimchi. If you don't know how to make kimchi, I have a blog post on that. I'll link it down in the description box below. So let's go ahead and clean up this bed. I think I'm going to leave this one over here because it looks like a really healthy plant, and I'm going to let it seed. While I'm doing that, I'm also weeding. Okay, I'll also leave this one right here. I think these are of the same variety. I think these are both rutabagas, so I'm going to leave them both. On this side, I have, oh no, these are the daikon radish, sorry. The rutabagas are in the back. I'm also going to let my stock go to seed. I have some stock over here that I planted of different colors. I'll use the seeds for planting next year. So if you look closely at this, these are the pods of the daikon radish, and all types of turnips and radishes make this type of pod, and inside the pod you will have seeds. These are edible. I've never eaten them myself. I'm kind of curious how they taste like. And once these pods mature and dry on the plant, you can then harvest them and take the seeds out and save the seeds for the next year. And the best way to store them is either in an envelope bag or in a mylar bag. Remember that seeds are living, so you want to give them some sort of air. I have found that the best way to store them is in an envelope that is like a paper envelope, and I store them in a dry environment. You can store them in like a plastic container, or some of them I have in my desk in a closed area. And you want to store them in a cool environment also. You don't want to store them in a hot environment because that can damage the seeds, or in a humid environment. So if I open this pod over here, you'll see these. I don't know if you guys can see them. There we go. You'll see these, and that will turn into seed. They are covered with a film right now, but they will also be covered with that film when they dry out, and you will take that film off of them and store them that way. Sorry for my dirty hands and nails. I've been working with the dirt and stuff, and didn't bring my gloves with me. Oh well, because I thought I was just going to be harvesting, but I just felt like this needs to be done. Now this bed over here is ready. You can see I took all the plants out and I kept 3 of these. I have one here, one there, and then one on that corner over there of the same plants. These are all daikon radishes, and now I can store my own seeds. So let's try this out and see how it tastes like. Let's see, make sure there's no bug in there. don't like it. No. Whew. It's a little spicy. And a little slimy. Not my favorite. I do like okra, but not this kind of sliminess. Makes me so nervous. Makes me feel like I'm eating like worms or something like that. Ugh. I don't like that. I think you could also saute these. That would probably make them taste better, but not my jam. I'll just harvest them for seeds. I think that's what I'll do. In this bed I had the kohlrabi and some Italian dandelion and the May Queen lettuce. I harvested some of the May Queen lettuce, but I wasn't able to harvest a bunch of it because my foot at the time was hurting me so much. Still is, but right now it's in a boot, so I can walk a little bit more, and the swelling has gone down a little bit. Anyways, back to this. So unfortunately, a lot of it went to seed. I will be planting some sort of green for us in the summer, but I do have to remove most of this. So again, like I said earlier, I like to leave 3 plants of the same plant for biogenetic diversity, so that when they go to seed, you will have 3 plants that are bearing seeds, and they can pollinate each other if they are open pollinated. Now some plants are self-pollinating, like tomatoes for example, and those you don't necessarily need to leave 3 of those plants, but it's good to anyways, just because you will have you know, you can kind of choose of the stronger plant, and I think that's what I'll do. I will save some of the tomato seeds from these plants, even though they're not doing great, but I will choose my favorite and I'll save those. If you want more information about how to save your own seeds from your plants, my favorite book on that is Seed to Seed book, and I will leave a link for that down in the description box below if you guys want to learn more about how you can save your own seeds. And this is the book that taught me the most on how to save seeds. I knew a little bit before, but that just expounded my knowledge on saving seeds. For example, I never knew how to save cucumber seeds, or you know, that type of plants, and it's just full of good information and very helpful. It's a very helpful resource for any gardener that would like to save their own seeds and more, I would say, and learn about spacing and stuff like that. I only want to leave 3 dandelions over here, and I noticed that I have 4 left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this one over here, and I'm going to cut the base off, and then I'm going to lay it over here, and what that's going to do is going to act as 2 things. It's going to block the weeds, and it's also going to decompose over here and provide some nitrogen directly into the soil. Now when I come to plant, by that time hopefully it would have decomposed a little bit, and I can scooch it over a little bit and then plant. I'm not going to dig them into the ground because I did put down cardboard to stop the weeds, and I don't want to disturb that right now. But in a different occasion, when I do use my normal method, I do dig them into the ground. But I think this is also a great way to use them as a weed block. So I have 3 dandelions over here, and I'm going to do the same for the lettuce. I'm going to pick the strongest of them. So I'm going to leave this one over here, and I'm going to cut the lettuce at the base and leave the root in the ground. also did the same thing with the strawberry spinach. I cut them at the base right below the surface of the ground, and I left 3 plants over here. There are 2 over here and 1 over here, and these are going to the chickens because they are infested with aphids, and I don't want to put them back in the bed. You can see over here the seeds. These are the strawberry spinach. They're almost like raspberries, but they do have the flavor of strawberries and broccoli, which is interesting, and it's really good actually. And you can also eat the leaves. But these are what holds the seeds, and they do seed themselves. So if you don't want them, you have to be careful and make sure to harvest all of these before they do go to seed. But hey, it's free plants. I don't mind that. So take these to the chickens, and that's how this bed looks like right now. So I will have all this space over here for planting, and also all this space over here. I'm leaving one of these kohlrabi to go to seed. I didn't leave 3 of them because I didn't plant that many, so I thought I'll just leave this one and see what happens. It might go to seed, it might not. It doesn't always happen over here, but I'll give it a try. And you can see the sugar snap peas, sugar snap peas, how tired they look. Look at their leaves. They're just starting to peter out, and look at their pods. They're all about to go to seed, or they are all going to seed, but they are maturing. So you want to leave these on the vine until they fully dry out before you harvest them, if you want to harvest them for seed. If you harvest them now, they will not be you will not be able to store them for seed. Those will just rot out because they are still green on the inside. You might be able to use them as shelling peas if you would like, but I just like to save them for seeds. So there are plenty of them, you can see over here, and the wind kind of toppled them over. I did put this string, but we do get a lot of wind over here, especially when we do have some storms in the summer. Wind or rainstorms, doesn't matter. That's how you can save the seeds of the sugar snap peas. So these will stay here until they all mature, then I'll pull them out and I'll be able to plant something for the fall. And now I gotta pull the garlic. For the garlic, you want to wait until the bottom 2 to 3 leaves have dried out, and then you can harvest it. You can harvest it before that, but it won't be great for storage, and if you leave it to go a little bit longer than that, then the garlic head would start to rot because some of the skin would start to decay, and then that would cause the bulbs to rot, and it also would be not super good for storage. So right now I'm going to pull all the garlic. I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna have a whole lot, but it might be enough for us for this winter. I don't know. I use a lot of garlic. We'll see. Trying to look for a good example for you. Let's see. This one is good right here, so you can see the bottom 2 leaves are dry, so I can pull this one out like that, and that's pretty good. This is my garlic harvest over here. Nothing to boast about. Last year I had a really good harvest. This year not so much. The bulbs are really small. I'm not sure if it was because of the weather or what, but last year that was my kind of harvest, like these 2 over here. It's okay, not a big deal. Something is better than nothing, and I'm going to be thankful. Now for garlic, garlic has to go through a curing process before you can store it, and what you want to do is you want to put it maybe on like a hardware cloth or a piece of cardboard or something in an area where it will receive airflow and away from sunlight, so that and rain, it will be sheltered from the environment so that it can dry out. And you want to let it cure until until all the tips have dried out from here all the way to the top. And then you can clean it with a brush or something, and then you can cut the roots off. And you can also cut this top off if you want, or you can braid it and store it that way. And to store it, I think you would want to store it around 45 Fahrenheit, or I store it in my basement. You could store it at 50 and 60 Fahrenheit as well, and it will do great. It will store throughout the winter as long as you have a cool place for it, a cool and a dark place, and with lots of airflow. You don't want to put it in something that's plastic or glass. You want to put it maybe in like a basket that has airflow, or something of the sort, or maybe even a paper bag would be better than like a bucket or something like that. So don't put it in a bucket, that's bad, it will rot for sure. So maybe the curing process might take about 2 to 3 to 6 weeks, something like that. I can't tell you for sure because that all depends on your environment and on your garlic. Now I have a tip on keeping my garden paths weed free, and if you have garden paths like mine or gravel, what I like to do is whenever I'm working next to a bed, I just come around and pull any weeds that I see, and that usually keeps the area weed free. Not completely weed free, but pretty good, you know, good enough for me. And because again I wasn't able to walk, this kind of got a little crazy, and you know, the kids can only do so much and then they get sick of it. So this doesn't take that much time. Just add a few minutes to what you're doing and weed around the area, and that will make your heart happy, because the next time you will come into your garden, you'll see it mostly weed free and it will look beautiful, and it doesn't take that much time anyways. So it's just a helpful tip. Let me know what you guys do to keep your gardens or your garden paths weed free. The fava beans are also about ready to give up on life, so same thing, I do the same thing with these. To save their seeds, I just let these pods mature on the bush and let them go to full maturity and dry out on the vine, and then you can harvest them and store them for seeds, and then you will be able to have fava beans with better genetics for the next year. One thing I forgot to mention about these plants, these leafy greens are all nitrogen hogs. They will take all the nitrogen from your soil. Well, not all, but a lot of the nitrogen. So by putting the leaves on the surface of the soil like I did over here, as you can see, and over there, what that's going to do, other than just block the weeds, is also it's going to provide the soil with some extra nitrogen. Now, because of the oxidization process that the leaves go through, because they are exposed to the air, they're not going to provide as much nitrogen as they would if you were to bury them under the soil. So if you want to give your soil the nitrogen that these plants stole back and put it back into the soil, you might want to bury the leafy growth beneath the surface of the soil. You don't have to till the ground, but just or if that's easier for you, you could just till the ground, or you could just make a few trenches and put the leaves in the soil, and then those plants are going to decompose and give that nitrogen back into the soil. And also you will have the added benefit when you do bury them in the ground of the bacterial growth, beneficial bacterial growth in the soil, and the worms eating the vegetation, feeding on the vegetation, and providing your soil with the organic worm castings. And also you will have the fermentation process that will happen, which will again increase the beneficial bacteria in your soil, and will also cause compost to occur, which will give you nitrogen and other beneficial stuff. So before it gets too dark, let's talk a little bit about onions. I'm not going to tackle these today, but what I'm going to do probably tomorrow is I'm going to come here and cut the tops off the onions because I don't want their necks to bend like this one is about to do over here. So when their necks bend, that signals to the onion that to stop growing. Now, these onions are not all bulbing great, but some of them are, like this one over here. And these are a type of a shallot, it's sort of like a shallot. It's a type of a red onion that grows like a shallot. It's sweeter than a shallot, but it's great. So I'm going to be taking these onions and making making kimchi or fermenting them or and doing pestos and stuff like that with them and saving some of the green tips in the freezer. So I'll do a separate video on that, but I just wanted to mention that to just kind of give you a quick tip on that. And if you also cut the tips of your onions, it will actually help the bulbs to grow bigger. And we still have a good amount of time for these onions to grow. So when I come and cut the tips off, because obviously we can't use all the tips just for salads and toppings and all that stuff, so I will have to come and cut them. So when I do cut them, those bulbs are going to grow a little bit bigger for us, and it's going to create more layers on the onion, and hopefully I'll have a good onion harvest. Doesn't seem like I'm going to, but we'll see what I'll get. Something is better than nothing. I do use a lot of onions, and I'm not going to count this year a total fail. The garden did give me something, and that's better than nothing. I planted this bed over here super early in the spring, even before our last frost date. Cabbage can be damaged by hard frost, and also same thing with the cauliflower and broccoli. So I did put them under frost protection, but I also left the frost protection because I wanted them to be protected from the cabbage moth. And that seemed to do the trick. I have a little bit of damage on the cabbage, but that's okay. So I'm going to harvest the cabbage, and I'm going to remove all the broccoli that I harvested. And one of them looks like it wants to go to seed right there. So I'm going to leave that over here and let it go to seed, because I want to harvest some of the seeds of this cauliflower because I really liked it. It was the Purple of Sicily cauliflower. So I'm going to harvest that. I'm going, again, now let it go to seed, and then when the time comes, we'll harvest the seeds. It also looks like some of my cabbage wants to go to seed. I've never had any cabbage wanting to go to seed, but because I planted this cabbage super early in the spring, and then it was exposed to the heat, it triggered it and it made it want to go to seed. So if I ever want to have cabbage to go to seed, that's what I have to do. And if I ever want any of the cool weather crops to go to seed, that's what I have to do. I did that once with some turnips, and they went to seed. We also had a really hot weather the year when they went to seed. It was like 104 or something like that. We usually don't have that kind of weather over here, but that triggered the turnips to go to seed. I'd never had turnips in my garden go to seed except for that year. So because I see that, I'm gonna let it go. I also have a cabbage that split. We'll see what I can salvage off of that. I'm hoping to, you can see it right there, I'm hoping to be able to make some, so we use a lot of cabbage. We use it for stuffed cabbage. I use it in salads. I also like to make sauerkraut and with this type of cabbage. And if there's anything that's bad or not that I'm not going to be able to use, I'll either give it to the chickens or I'll put it in the compost pile. It's not going to waste anyways. And I'm also super excited that I finally have cabbage that's going to go to seed. And here it is right here. You can see it. See this? It looks like it's forming this spear tip, and that's now it's going to produce a stalk and it's going to go to seed. I probably can use the outer leaves if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. It's okay. This is not a loss. This is a win. I finally was able to get it to seed. So I'm going to harvest this one over here This one looks like it could still keep going. I'll also have to weed the bed, obviously. And this one also looks like it could still keep going. These, I'm not sure why they didn't do so well. But on this side over here, this one will be okay. This is a good head, it's not a big deal. And that's the one that split. It also looks like it wants to bolt, but I'm just going to harvest it. And this is a good head, that's a good head. Now the smaller ones over there, if they do bolt, these two over here, if they do go to seed, I'm just going to let them go to seed because that's what I want anyways. So that's my cabbage harvest over here. Not too bad. I think this is the split one over here. But I think overall this is great. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I have 3 heads that are still in the bed, and those I left to go to seed. This is not going to be my only cabbage harvest. I am going to be reseeding some cabbage of a different type. I'm going to be seeding some green cabbage, and then later on around August I'm going to be seeding some cabbage and Napa cabbage, like the tall Asian cabbage, and some bok choy and all that stuff, because I want to make kimchi and I want to store cabbage for the winter. Now these are not going to store for too long, and I'm going to be using them and processing them. I'll probably make videos for you guys on how I'm going to be doing that, but for now I'm going to remove the outer leaves and I'm going to store them in our basement because I don't have enough space in my fridge, and the basement is cool and it's humid, so it's cooler than the rest of the house, you know. It's going to keep them from going bad for long enough, you know. I don't need them to stay down there for too long. I also want to use some for like maybe coleslaw or salad or something like that, because it's just super fun to get some organic cabbage from our garden and organic vegetables from our garden. So now I'm going to hurry up and finish the rest and do as much as I can, because I think right now it is 8:33, so I'll probably be done by 9, and I gotta hurry up and close this area before it gets too dark, because we have bears here and all sorts of animals, bobcats and mountain lions and, you know, all the scary stuff, so I don't want to be eaten alive. So just joking. I mean, we do have them, but they normally don't come if there is noise and lights outside and stuff like that. I'll also be leaving a link for the video that I made on how to have a self-sustaining garden and soil health, and I'll link that over here. Sorry for my dirty fingers. And some other videos for you guys that you can enjoy. So go ahead, click on them and watch them, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again next time. Bye.